Now, when it comes to Papoose and the slowest, most public, most self-inflicted reputation crash the culture has ever watched a grown man carry out in real time, I need you locked in right now, because this is not some rumor drifting around a blog. This is not a screenshot floating around from a burner account. This is not Tasha K fabricating a storyline out of thin air. This is a husband, a father, a man who once stood as the gold standard for loyalty in hip-hop, now willingly, in broad daylight, with his whole chest, walking himself straight into a corner the internet already sealed shut behind him. Over 20 years of goodwill, the so-called godfather of hip-hop respect, the board seat energy tied to the Hip-Hop Museum opening in New York in 2026, the full underdog husband mythology, all of it sitting on the stove while he stands there acting like he can't smell the smoke. Papoose didn't lose his legacy to some old scandal dug up from the past. He didn't lose it to a leaked tape. He lost it on his own timeline, in his own live streams, in his own Vlad TV interview. And the receipts aren't coming. The receipts are already here, and we've been stacking them for over a year. The man who turned a marriage into a brand has spent the last 18 months trying to convince the same culture that uplifted him that everything we saw with our own eyes meant something completely different. And the internet, the same internet that once rode hard for him, is now sitting back with popcorn, screenshots, timelines, and that Remy Ma diss energy on repeat. Because the show isn't over, it's barely past the halfway mark. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Let me lay this out clearly for anyone still pretending they don't know what's going on. Papoose, born Shamel Mackey, the Brooklyn lyricist who came up under Kool G Rap. The man who built his entire public identity on being the loyal husband standing beside Remy Ma through her prison bid, her comeback, love and hip-hop, and the full cultural arc that people called beautiful. Married in 2008 inside Rikers, raising a daughter together across decades, always standing beside his wife with that same image fans labeled as Black Love. That was the brand, that was the foundation, that was the reason even people who never played his mixtapes respected his name. Now fast forward, according to Papoose's own account on Vlad TV, he and Clarissa Shields met in July of 2024. By December 2024, he says the split with Remy Ma was official. He filed for divorce in May 2025. And somewhere in between, the boxing champion, the two-time Olympic gold medalist, the undisputed force in women's boxing, ended up appearing beside him at events, on red carpets, on The Breakfast Club, and in vacation photos dropped from Aruba. That's the timeline he gave us. That's the timeline Remy Ma publicly disputes. And right there is the gap, that small, dangerous gap between his version and her version, where the entire collapse starts to breathe. Now let me bring you the surface level, the part anybody with a phone can verify. Aruba. Go pull up those Aruba pictures. Go check the Shade Room posts. Go scroll the Instagram dumps. Go watch the videos Clarissa Shields herself posted. Look at his face. I am not saying the man doesn't smile. I am saying that smile never actually makes it all the way up to his eyes. Compare that side by side with those red carpet photos from 5 years ago with Remy and the kids. Two completely different men. One looked like he was lit from the inside out. The other one looks like he's being lit by a resort golden hour filter and a phone
propped on a tripod. Then cut to the Breakfast Club sit-down from December 2025, the Bars on Wheels promo run, where he and Clarissa sat across from Charlemagne and Envy, trying to sell Black Love to a room that already had its arms crossed. Watch the body language in that clip. Watch how he dodges the Remy question. Watch how she ends up answering for him. Watch how every cheating allegation gets brushed off with a smile that feels half nervous, half rehearsed. This isn't me being harsh. This is me paying attention. The same man who used to write 4-minute love letters and freestyle devotion to his wife is now on one of the biggest morning shows in hip-hop, fumbling the simplest question about when his marriage actually ended. And the internet caught it instantly. Go read the comments section under that interview. Go read the quote tweets. The verdict dropped before the segment even finished airing. Then we get the Vlad TV sit-down, the one where Papoose decided he was going to clear his name and somehow ended up collapsing the entire narrative instead. He told Vlad on camera that he and Clarissa met in July 2024, that the marriage was already over by December, and that there was no cheating involved. He came with what he called receipts. Fans watched it. Fans weren't convinced. The same Instagram clips meant to redeem him started getting captions like "Pap's Vlad interview backfired." Because here's the issue with going on the biggest urban interview platform in hip-hop to defend yourself, Pap. If your timeline doesn't match her timeline, and her timeline already has text messages she's publicly posted, the internet is going to do the math you never wanted done. And that math kept landing in one place. Then right after that Vlad interview, here comes 50 Cent, doing what 50 Cent does, pulling the whole situation into his own comment section arena. Joking about Clarissa, joking about Bud, joking about a cheating allegation that Papoose then had to respond to again on Hot New Hip Hop in print. When you're explaining yourself to 50 Cent's audience over a cheating rumor, the rumor has already won. You don't win that conversation. Nobody wins that conversation. You just get trapped inside it. And being in it is already the loss. And I've got more for you. Because all of that surface level stuff, the vacation pictures, the morning show interviews, the Vlad sit down, that was just the appetizer. The Clarissa supporters are not going to like what comes next. The Pop supporters are not going to like it either. And honestly, the Remy supporters are about to eat, because we're stepping into the cultural evidence. That's where the real damage shows up. Let's talk about WL. Let's talk about YFN Bidchi. Remy Ma, who had been moving quiet for most of 2025, stepped into the booth, dropped that on-the-radar freestyle, and basically carved Pap's credibility right out in the open. According to Complex, The Source, Yahoo Entertainment, and every reaction channel that jumped on it within 48 hours, the record hit two different pressure points at once. One, the long-running internet whispers that Pap ghostwrote for her, which she shut down directly, calling him a fake ghostwriter and telling him to fix himself, saying he never wrote anything for her, in her words. Two, the Subliminals fans instantly tied back to Clarissa. The bar about telling him to find something foolish to entertain himself with and him choosing her, the whole framing of women doing the most over a man who doesn't belong to them, got clipped, screenshotted, and pushed across TikTok timelines within days. Whether you think the track is heat or you think it's just calculated pettiness, the cultural verdict still landed exactly where it landed. The Reddit hip-hop heads thread was calling the bar as top tier from jump. The reaction compilations on YouTube pushed into hundreds of thousands of views. The Black Alpha alone pulled around 22,000 on his reaction stream. The WL reaction compilations crossed the 150,000 mark. And Tasha K, Pillow Talker, Unwind with Tasha K, basically every
gossip channel in that ecosystem ran it as their A-block story for a full month. Then Clarissa did it. Clarissa went live. Clarissa, one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters of her era, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, an undisputed champion across multiple divisions, a real athletic genius the culture should be celebrating in a different conversation, went live and addressed Remy, addressed the diss, addressed the chatter, and handled it with the energy of somebody who has never really lived inside internet beef culture before, like Hot New Hip Hop. Remy publicly told her to refrain from speaking on her name, and Clarissa immediately clapped back. For the Shade Room, when speculation started that Papoose didn't spend Christmas with Remy and the kids, Clarissa was on a live stream addressing both of them. For People, Remy at one point called Clarissa a narcissist in a statement that spread across every blog in the niche. For The Go, Remy joked on Instagram that she would help pay for Papoose's divorce lawyer and that Clarissa could chip in. For Facebook Live clips circulating since mid-2025, Remy at one point told Papoose in her own words to come get his clothes. The clothesline instantly became a meme. The clothesline stayed a meme for months. And this is the part where I need to be real with you, because credibility is everything on this side of the internet. We don't have, to my knowledge, any verified public confirmation that Papoose, as of right now, has or hasn't retrieved his belongings. What we do have is Remy's public statement saying he needed to come get them. What we do have is a couple posting Aruba pictures while that statement sits there unanswered on the timeline. What we do have is optics, and optics, as you know, are the entire game in the gossip economy. Now here comes the pattern interrupt, because if we stop at rapper leaves wife for boxer, we are doing the lazy version of the story, and this channel doesn't do lazy. The real story isn't in the relationship, the real story is in the business. Pull up Papoose's resume on paper. Head of hip-hop at TuneCore, the largest independent music distribution platform in the world, a position he was appointed to in 2022 specifically because of his credibility, integrity, and his reputation as the loyal vet who could mentor rising artists. Board member at the Universal Hip Hop Museum opening in the Bronx in 2026, a $50 million institutional project the city is actively pouring resources into, an institution where his face is being positioned as part of the foundational generation. Then Bars on Wheels, the album he's currently pushing through its press cycle, the project he's framing as his return to lyrical hip-hop. And here's what nobody in the reaction channel circuit is telling you. Likeability is not just clout. Likeability is the underlying asset class behind every single one of those positions. The TuneCore role is a brand advisory role. The Hip Hop Museum board seat is a public trust position. The album rollout depends on goodwill from radio, streaming editorial, and the same media ecosystem that just spent 12 months watching him stumble. When your likability in the eyes of the audience that buys your music and shows up to your panels drops from 100% beloved to about a third of that, you don't just lose fans. You lose deals, you lose rooms, you lose keynote invitations, you lose the subtle cosigns from gatekeepers who decide whose face ends up on the museum brochure. Nobody calls you to tell you. The calls just stop. And that, more than any Remy diss or lag backfire, is the real fallout. Because hip-hop forgives a lot, but hip-hop has very little patience for a man who built his entire brand on one virtue and then publicly traded that virtue for a thirst trap narrative. And here comes the bigger picture, the one that makes everything click. Hip-hop is a culture of personas. Papoose's persona, the one that got him into those rooms, was loyalty. Not skill, not charts, not radio dominance. Loyalty. The man's commercial peak as a solo artist never matched his street credits really, and everyone knew it.
Including him. What kept him relevant for 15 years past that window was the brand of the husband, the family man, the underdog who stayed when nobody else did. That was the asset. That was the only asset that truly scaled. Strip that asset away, and what's left? A respected lyricist with no radio hits and no chart presence, competing for attention in a market that doesn't give second chances to mid-tier veterans. That's the math nobody around him is saying out loud. And I suspect, if I'm being honest, he's done that math privately more than once at 3 a.m. in a hotel room he doesn't want to be in. And he keeps choosing not to act on it, which in itself is an answer. Now, here's the part I've been holding back, because if you've stayed locked in this long in the video, you've earned this moment. The biggest truth bomb in this entire situation is not that Papoose chose Clarissa over Remy. The real truth bomb is that the choice was never even truly about Clarissa in the first place. Let me break it down. Pay attention to how he speaks about her in that Breakfast Club interview. Listen closely to what he keeps highlighting. The Olympic medals, the undisputed titles, the discipline, the grind, the work ethic. He is not really describing a woman he is in love with. He is describing a woman he is impressed by. And those are two completely different emotional lanes. The first one builds a lifetime. The second one lasts only until something more impressive walks into view. What he traded Remy for, in my analytical view, and I want to be very clear, this is my read of the publicly available behavior, is not another woman at all. It is a version of himself he stopped getting inside the original relationship. That ego refill, that constant press cycle, that you're still that guy validation. Reassurance coming from a younger, accomplished, highly visible partner who made him feel relevant in a year where his solo career, by every commercial measure, was flatlining. And once you see that, you understand why walking away becomes complicated, even when every signal around you says you should leave. Because leaving Clarissa is not just leaving Clarissa. Leaving Clarissa means confronting the idea that the ego refill didn't hold, that the validation was temporary, that the life he stepped out of might have been the one giving him the most real love. And admitting that publicly on the same internet where he has spent 18 months performing the opposite is a level of humiliation most men in his position are not built to absorb. So he stays, he posts, he smiles for the camera in Aruba, and the distance between reality and performance just keeps expanding. And that brings us to the resolution, because there is one here, and it is not Papoose. The resolution is Remy Ma. While Papoose is running press circuits defending his timeline, Remy is in the booth dropping freestyles that the internet immediately stops everything to react to. While Papoose is on Vlad explaining himself, Remy is on Instagram joking that she might pay for his divorce lawyer. While Papoose is in Aruba posing for the camera, Remy is moving in silence, stacking, looking better than she has in years, and letting results speak louder than anything else. That right there is the lesson the culture is absorbing in real time, whether people say it out loud or not. The right person, the disciplined person, the emotionally grounded person tends to win the long game online. Not because life is fair, but because audiences can instantly sense who is performing peace and who is actually living it. Remy Ma is not performing peace. She is in the booth. She is with her kids. She is letting Papoose's decisions become Papoose's consequences. And every time he speaks, she gains. Every time he posts, she gains. Every time Clarissa goes live, she gains. That is what effortless winning looks like. That is what disciplined payoff looks like.
And the same culture that watched her go through her bid, watched her come home, watched her rebuild, is now watching her glide through a public separation without ever looking like she is
struggling. The hero of this story was never the husband. It was always the woman who refused to be reduced by the husband's decisions. And this is still only the beginning. Because what I need you to understand about where this is headed is simple. This story does not end when the divorce is finalized. This story does not end when the album drops. This story does not end when the next Aruba post hits the timeline. This story keeps evolving because the core tension inside it has not been resolved. Papoose has not reclaimed his pride. Clarissa has not reclaimed her privacy. Remy has not stopped expressing herself. The Hip Hop Museum opens in 2026 with his name on the board. The TuneCore role keeps him embedded in the industry machine. And every single one of those institutional positions will continue to be stress-tested by every new headline. And there will be a new headline. There is always another headline. The next freestyle, the next live stream, the next interview where one question lands wrong and the entire timeline cracks open again. And when that next chapter drops, you are going to want to be subscribed because we will be right here breaking it down the same way. Receipts, timeline, and business context. Nobody else is connecting it.